I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. First off, if you hear any noise, I apologize. That is the fan that I put under my computer just to cool it, just in case. Number two, this is a PayPal request thanks to Jim, a very nice person who sent me a request via PayPal. If anyone is ever interested in sending me a request, whether it be a movie review or a review of anything, or a commentary or a movie topic, whatever, you just send it to my PayPal. The link to that is down below. Or if you want to join me on my Patreon, the link to that is down below too. Now, the film he wanted me to talk about, again, thank you, Jim, if you see this, is the Borderlands, also known as Final Prayer. Now, the Borderlands has nothing to do with the Borderlands video game. And when I saw the title, didn't recognize it until I saw the poster. And the poster, it's like a church, but it's in the vein of a cross, which is not in the movie, but interesting poster setup. And the reason I recognize that is a few years ago, I did a little mini marathon of found footage reviews. In fact, I think I have a playlist still on my channel of found footage movie reviews. And there's some really bad ones like Area 407. I forgot the last one I reviewed. I think Skinwalker Ranch, and what was the other one? I already forgot what the other one was. Just that's how good it was. But there's ones I enjoy. The Tunnel, I think, is a very underrated film. That was around 2011, I believe. But I really enjoy The Tunnel. I love the original Blair Witch Project. I love As Above, So Below. Afflicted, that's an underrated one. Where a guy, it's like a vampire tale, but found footage. Really interesting movie, Afflicted. Exists, which is a Bigfoot movie. Those are, I think, in my opinion, the best found footage films. The original Blair Witch Project, The Tunnel, As Above, So Below, Exists, Afflicted. Some others, Chronicle is good. I like Cloverfield. But there's a lot of bad ones too. And found footage is an interesting genre because there is a genre I really, really hate or I really, really love. Very rarely it's kind of in the middle. And this one, I would say it is a well done film. There's just a few things that I dislike about it. So I don't love the film and I would not put it in my collection. But I would say if you're a fan of Paranormal Activity, which I'm not even a fan of the Paranormal Activity films, but this one I actually put above them because I like the story for the most part. I like the two lead characters were really good because they actually put a little bit of development into the characters. I thought the actors did a really solid job. It's not a movie where there's a lot of action. It is one of those films that's a slow burn. It's a build-up. It does have the found footage cliches where you're not going to see a lot of stuff and you're not going to see a lot of special effects, and it has one of those endings. I will say the ending is creepy. I give credit to that. So while I don't want to spoil it, I will say it's a very creepy ending. And maybe that's why, although I didn't love it because of things in the ending, I would not see it again. Just a personal preference, which I'll get to when I get a little bit in the spoiler section. But I don't think I'm as mad, because if it's meant to be a creepy ending, it did it. And interesting. I'm not going to spoil it. I would actually suggest people check it out without looking it up, because it'll be spoiled on Wikipedia. It'll be spoiled on other things. If you know nothing about it and you're okay or into found footage, go see it and don't spoil it. But with that said, I did enjoy, like I said, the story was a bit interesting. The environment, because it takes place in this church, good setup for a horror film. And like I said, it does take a little bit of time actually developing the characters, and the acting seemed natural. It didn't seem forced. It wasn't bad. It wasn't hokey. I wasn't really scared, granted. I didn't think it was a scary, horrified, no. There's nothing in the film that was scary to me. I just think, and we'll agree that the last bit is creepy, because the idea of it is creepy. But the setup of the film, you have a group of folks that are investigating this remote church, that apparently some paranormal stuff is happening, because they saw a video where stuff was moving, and the father, I forget the character's name, his nose was bleeding. So of the characters, it's mainly these two. One is the tech guy, who's not really into any of this. He's just doing this to get paid a little bit. Then you have this other guy who is a man of faith, but he's a guy who doesn't really take any gruff. You know, he likes to drink. You tell there's some history behind him that we learn bits of it throughout the film. Like I said, it does a decent job of developing the characters. And you do get a sense of these two bonding with each other, growing to like each other. And for the most part, I do end up liking the main two characters. A little bit later in the film, they're joined by a third person who's a father. I think the first name of him is Mark. I forget the last name, so I'll just say Father Mark, just to not confuse people. And so they're looking into this. Maybe, is this fake? Is this not real? What's going on here? And it's a film where you're not going to have... I don't think it's that scary, because it's stuff that you've seen in dozens and dozens of this particular, not just genre, but section of genre. If you've seen Paranormal Activity films, you've seen these type of scares where, granted, it's more subtle, but the noises, hearing infant noises, which babies crying, which I heard that in the original Blair Witch Project back in 1999. When I saw that on VHS. So, really enough, it wasn't really the horror aspect that I cared about. It was more the characters and the story. And I keep mentioning story because delving more into this search and maybe dealing with pagans and ritual sacrifices, and to the characters, we learn more about the man of faith, but he doesn't take any shit. I think that character's name was Deacon. And then the tech guy, his name was Gray. And there's a couple decent bits of eeriness. Like the Gray guy, the tech guy, the reason they have the cameras, they're filming all this, they have it on, placed kind of like a headlamp to the side here, kind of what they use in Aliens, you know, that type of setup with the cameras. And the guy's just trying to smoke something outside, and he's looking at a grave, and then he pans, and he doesn't notice it, but if you have a sharp eye, the audience notices that the grave changes. So if you notice, again, the character doesn't notice, but we, the audience, will notice that it says the guy's name, like Gray something, Parker or something. Then he turns, and when it goes back, the grave is a different name. So, and different year. Just like Gray Parker, 2013. So I thought that was an interesting take where even the main character doesn't notice. And if you're not paying attention, you probably won't notice, but it's something I know. I'm like, oh, that's little bits of horror like that I'll give credit to. But for the most part, it's the, typical, they hear noises. This one guy, he's freaking out, and a couple jump scares. So the horror didn't really impress me much. Like I said, the main character's learning about how this guy is a man of faith. Okay, for example, the deacon guy is talking to the tech guy. He's telling a story about how he was on this case one time about stigmata. And the tech guy, well, that's gotta be real. I mean, how could the wounds just appear? And then Deacon tells the story about what he found out, that the mother for 10 days or so would cut her daughter's hands and feet to make it appear. And when the girl died of her wounds, that the mom talked to him and said, now you can make my girl a saint. So certain stories and dialogue told between the characters. And certain rapport, like even the fun rapport. Like the deacon does a little trick where he puts something in the bottle and the tech guy's impressed. And Deacon did that because he goes, don't believe everything you see. So again, that build up and actually liking the characters made the film noteworthy. And despite me saying that the horror aspect I didn't think it was ever scary or ooh. If you've seen found footage films, you've seen this countless times. Whether it be any of the 10 or whatever paranormal activity films. But even those, I didn't really care much about the characters. Here, they do a good development of it. I keep harping on that because that's, I think, its biggest strength. And there are a couple creepy moments. I mentioned the tombstone scene. There's a scene early on where they hear this shrieking outside of the place they're living at, and they realize that some asshole kids have put a sheep on fire. It's not, you just see something on fire and you hear this creepy screaming and you realize it's a sheep that's been put on fire. Thankfully they didn't do like CGI fire or anything. They didn't do that. You did enough that it's like, okay, the idea and the noise, that if that's what you want to talk about with the horror aspects, okay, but it's very small and it's building up, but there's little moments. Again, there's nice moments of humor. Later on, Deacon gets either one of the kids who did that or who were making fun of it. Because one time the two guys are walking by and there's these asshole kids mimicking the noise of a sheep. And the Deacon guy just goes up and punches the kid and almost knocks him the fuck out. So I thought that was pretty fun. So again, there's some humor that made me chuckle. There's the characters I liked. The third guy, the father, Mark, he was there, but these two guys are more the leads. I keep harping on that. When you get to the third act, I do have some issues with it. Although, again, the final scene is creepy. But overall, I'm going to get into spoilers before I do. If you're at all a fan of found footage, I would say give this a look. Whether it's under the Borderlands, it's a 2013 film, or Final Prayer. Yeah, I would say if you like these type of movies, found footage films at all, it's worth a look. Getting more into spoilers, starting now. One of the, just to set it up, by the end of the film, the father who was there at that remote church, like I say, he was freaking out. He goes to a point, he commits suicide. Of the three, Father Mark says we should leave. You hear a bit more of Deacon's backstory, which is interesting, where there was another thing that happened and realized there was these scammers, but Deacon was sent there to bring these religious guys back, but he wanted to meddle and find out the truth, but then they got killed, and he only got saved because he was a drunk. So you have a little bit of a, like I said, a little bit of a backstory for the main character, or one of the main characters. Ends with the three of them get in touch with this older guy who's an exorcist, and they go to the remote church, and the older exorcist guy is talking about how this was the ground of a pagan temple years and years and years ago, before the church, before perhaps even Christianity itself. So again, the story was a bit interesting on that front. They started doing the ceremony, and before they could finish it, things go haywire. Some lights explode. You get, like a lot of found footage, that annoying thing where you can't see what the fuck's going on, so it glitches out, and all of a sudden, the one Father Mark, his ears are bleeding, looks like he's dead. The one exorcist guy, he's disappeared, and the two guys, they go down this stone staircase, and you guess where it's going, but not really. I'll explain that in a minute. Some of the issues I have, not a lot happening, maybe because of budget, maybe because of the format. I don't know if you needed this to be found footage. And there's certain, when it's found footage, that doesn't make sense. Earlier when I mentioned when he punches the kid, which was fun, teen asshole kid. Later on he's talking to the tech guy and he goes, "Oh, just don't tell Mark, okay?" And I'm going, don't tell Mark, this stuff is all recorded. So when they see the footage, these guys probably would see the footage and see you punching the guy. So why are you telling them, don't tell Mark? It's almost as if at times they forgot they were doing a found footage movie. Same with how the film ends. How is this footage even a thing? It's kind of like Apollo 18. Like, wait a minute. How is this footage brought back? Like, how is this footage here? I mean, that's kind of the point of a found footage, because it's been found. There's no way it could be found unless digitally, but even then, where they were at, considering how shitty internet can be at times, just if you breathe or sneeze wrong. But anyway. Also, another issue is there's a point where the deacon guy goes, "It's not real, Gray, it's not real." I'm like, bullshit. 5 minutes ago, you were gung-ho about all this being real, telling Father Mark, getting pissed at him, that we should do this because it could be real. What if it's real? You were gung-ho about. That's why you kind of push for everybody to get into the church in the first place. But then you're going, well, it's not real. What the fuck? It's almost as if the writing kind of dwindled in the third act. Also, the two guys keep going through these tunnels. I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. You hear voices. You think you hear Father Mark, even though you saw him with blood coming out of his ears, looking like he's dead. And you hear voices. You do know earlier you heard the voices of babies. We know there were not babies there, so if those were fake, don't you think these voices could be faked too? And also, this Father Mark, when you see him, he's always chanting. Ray, you're chanting. I want to kill everyone. Satan is good. Satan's a power. He's chanting. Don't you think that's a bit weird? So why the fuck are you still chasing him? Why are you still chasing him if he's chanting? Don't you think that's a bit weird and strange? Shouldn't some light bulbs, that light bulb even, pop up? I mean, throughout the beginning of the film, they seem like smart characters, but in the third act, it kind of went dumb because we gotta have the typical found footage ending. We gotta have them keep going, even though it doesn't make any sense. It's like the writing dropped the ball in this last 10 minutes. I mean, you don't think the other voices could be fate? It's not like there were really infants there crying. Your buddy who you thought was dead with the ears bleeding, he's chanting and doesn't come to you and doesn't listen to you? Don't you think it's a bit weird? Why are you still chasing after him? And yes, it's another one of those found footage films where it's downbeat of an ending. I know it's a horror film. Horror films are meant to horrify you. I understand that's a stupid argument to go, well, of course, why not be downbeat? That's if it helps with the horror. It just comes down to personal preference. Yes, I prefer a happy ending. Call me silly, goofy, corny, stupid, but I just prefer a happy ending. It's rare. I'm not saying it's never happened. The original Blair Witch Project, it's not a happy ending, but there's always exceptions to the rule. As to how it gets that exception, I don't know. Sometimes you just have to feel it. Feel it. Sometimes you just have to feel it. I would have preferred these two guys somehow make it out of there, and then they bring their findings to the Vatican, or they're able to finish the exorcism and defeat the evil. Call me silly. I think if it had done that, I would have liked this a lot more. Loved it. But I will say the ending bit is creepy because as these two keep going down, the tunnels get thinner and thinner and more claustrophobic and more claustrophobic. That's an interesting idea. Until they get to this tunnel and they're squeezing through, kind of like Bishop and Aliens when he's squeezing through that long pipe. And then they come to realize they're trapped in this tunnel that looks like a membrane or something. And they realize they're in the belly of some type of beast. Whether you call it a pagan god, the underground of this church being a representation of the beast of the deity, or whatever these things were, Antichrist, whatever you want to call it, some like a beast type thing. And our two characters are getting digested because the stuff is falling on them like digestive juices and burning them. And I gotta admit, the way the actors handle it, the reveal, because it's not something you see every day. It's not something you expect. If you're watching this film with not knowing anything about it, you're not, you would not expect that. So it's definitely interesting, dare I say original, and again a bit creepy, the idea that here's two characters you like, now they're trapped in this claustrophobic tunnel, and they're being digested because this stuff is falling on them and burning. The actors play off very well. And then boom, it ends. Now again, it's not a satisfying ending. And that's probably my main gripe on this film, as well as some of the dumb stuff that happens in the third act. Yeah, I think if some of the script made it a bit smarter as to why they're doing certain things, and an uplifting ending is not against the law. Again, that's just personal preference. That I probably would have loved the film. The horror aspect for most of it, other than a couple little eerie moments, I didn't think it was scary or horrifying. But yeah, that last ending bit was creepy, and I give credit to that, because I wasn't creeped out by Paranormal Activity endings or stuff, but this was, again, the idea of you being trapped with someone in this thing, and I know it sounds stupid, but long ago when I was a kid, I watched Jaws 3, and one of the things that sticks out about Jaws 3 is the one guy that gets stuck in the shark's mouth and stuck there. And the idea of just being stuck in the shark's mouth throat, I always just thought it was a creepy idea. Same with here. So I give credit to that. I give credit where credit's due. So, yeah, while the ending is not satisfying to me, there's some dumb stuff. And the horror for the first 2/3 are not as horrifying as some reviewers called it. Could I say I liked the film? I liked a good chunk of the film. The ending, disappointing that I went the, of course, 95% of found footage films ends in a downbeat way. But in the way it did, it was a little bit different. And I keep using, that part was creepy. So, take that for what you will. Although, again, like I don't repeat myself, but there were some dumb stuff in the third act, like I mentioned. But yeah, did like the story, did like the characters. It did have a bit of an atmosphere with the look of the church and certain little scenes. So there's, if you're a found footage fanatic, there's some good notes and worth to this. So thanks for watching. Take care. Stay tuned for more reviews. Thank you once again, Jim, and we will talk to you guys later. Bye bye.